If the allegations against Kouri Richins prove to be true, this takes some serious gumption. Not only does she write a book about grief and go on TV to promote it, and says it's for her children who now don't have a father, but now she files a civil lawsuit in the middle of the criminal case. But get this, she may actually have a decent argument based on Eric Richins' living trust, which, while controlled by his sister, was set up to, quote, provide for both my wife and our children during any time that I am incapacitated and after my death. And his will, which complies with the prenup, quote, if husband should die prior to wife while the two are lawfully married, husband's partnership interest in said business shall transfer to the wife. Joining me now is Nathan Croxford, a Utah-based civil attorney, specializes in estate planning, prenups, wills, trusts. He's been following this case closely. Nathan, thanks very much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so I said there in the introduction that she actually may have a serious legal argument here. Is it possible that the court is going to interpret the totality of the circumstances and say, yeah, she should be entitled to that money?
I think there is, Dan, especially with regard to the claim to the equity in the house. She's alleging that she has some pre-existing vested interests in that home by virtue of her contributions to the down payment, contributions to mortgage payments through the years, paying utility bills, paying other expenses related to the home, and essentially saying she has an equitable right to 50% of the equity, notwithstanding any prenup or any other agreement.
Well, but putting that aside, so none of that gets impacted by the fact that she stands accused of now causing his death.
That's the interesting thing. Clearly, the claim under the prenup of the business interest, that I think is a more problematic argument, because Utah has, as does many jurisdictions, a slayer statute that essentially says if you're proven to have killed someone, you cannot benefit from your crime. You can't profit from your crime. And it's specifically geared towards documents like a prenup, a trust, a will, and so forth.
Let me play another piece of sound. This is more of Kouri Richins on Good Day Utah when she was promoting her book.
So you actually wrote this book with your children.
I did.
And it's only been a year. How did you process and say you go from processing death to I need to write a book and help others?
You know, I just watched the struggle that my kids were going through. And I actually, I went on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and trying to find something that we could use to cope at nights. Nights are the hardest, it seems like, for everybody when, dealing with anything. But I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night. And I just could not find anything. I couldn't find anything that really, suited them or helped them find comfort and peace. And so, I was like, let's just write one.
Does any of that come into play here in evaluating whether she would be entitled to money at this point?
I don't think so, Dan. I mean, obviously, there's a distinction between the court of public opinion and a court of law. And the kinds of things that we've seen come out by way of details in this case certainly don't help her in a court of public opinion. But in a tribunal where, an impartial judge or potentially a jury is involved, I don't know that those clips would even come in.
I think you're right. I think that I think you're probably right about that. It's fascinating to watch, but as a legal matter, may not be admissible. Nathan Croxford, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.